Hi ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another war video. We're in War 4, up against Natus, Vincere. We got Apoc, Cable, and Archangel on the team, and in this first fight on Path 2, we're up against Mr. Negative on Strike Counter Fury. The strategy in this fight is to just avoid parrying as much as possible. We don't want to give him light charges that he can then convert and invert our controls and make this pretty tough. So instead, we're just gonna bait out heavies or full combos into the block. Fight going pretty well, managing the strike counter. I do give him a fury, but it's okay. We're not gonna let him build too many. Here comes the first SP2. Does a ton of damage. Cable charges up our Apoc for this fruit fight. And here comes the second SP2, not worried about the light charges at this point. He's dead. Nice and easy start to the war. Alright, so for fight 2, it's the shared strike counter fury with void on it. It's a 5-star void, so I'm not too worried about this fight. I think Apoc is going to nuke him pretty quickly. I'll try to manage void's debuffs, but I don't think it's going to come into play too much. We're really just going to throw an SP2 and then throw another one, and he should be dead. On all of these strike counter paths, I tend to use a power star 1, either to get to the SP2 fast, or just make sure that I never have to build up furies. So here's the first SP2, and it basically kills him. Again, this is a 5-star void, and at this point, 5-star defenders just melt to rank 3s. Second SP2, and he is in the bin. 2 fights down, and they went pretty easy. So we're gonna move on. Now we've got Daredevil Hell's Kitchen on Mixmaster, and well, you'll just see this fight goes awesome. The strategy is perfect, light medium combos, and SP2 with power back boost, and yeah, he's just gonna die. Here we go. Apoc goes in, big heavy, and that's the fight. I'm just kidding. Obviously, my recording failed here, and so this dramatic reenactment had to get thrown into the video. We are going on to Section 2, facing Captain America Infinity War on strike counter block penetration. Strategy here is to parry a couple times and get Apoc's disorient immunity. And then, again, we're going to just be cycling specials and nuking this guy down. So I parry a couple times, throw off a heavy, start to build some power, get to that SP2. Right about here we get the disorient immunity. And now I'm not honestly too worried about the block penetration counter. Throw off this SP2, and he is halfway down. One note here is just to know yourself and to know what specials you want to bait. I know Captain America Infinity War, his SP2 isn't hard to dodge, but it tends to catch me when I'm going for a dex or if I dex back too early, and obviously that can just end the fight in one shot, and so I'm intentionally trying to bait SP1 here because I know that I can deal with that every time, keep it safe. Don't want to give up a silly death just because I mess up a dex on that SP2. But yeah, it goes down pretty quick with the power back boost. Again, that's just a lesson in knowing yourself, know which specials you're comfortable with. Moving on to Ghost, again, strike counter block penetration. I'm using APOC, but obviously the power back boosts aren't going to work. So this is going to be a little bit more of a traditional fight here. Still starting with power 1, and we're just going to build up to an SP2, launch that, try to get big damage, and then probably go for an SP1 after that. So here's the first SP2, even with class advantage, does a good amount of damage to Ghost. She doesn't have the biggest health pool. She comes in here for an SP1, we counter, try to refresh those debuffs. She's throwing heavies. I don't really care about which specialty throws, so I'm trying to bait out this SP2 now. She's being a little stingy with it. Throwing heavies. There we go. So we're coming back in, just gonna throw off the SB1, try to get our strike counter reset. Does a good amount of damage, and then we stun her, throw a heavy. That was a little bit risky because the limber, I think she could have technically hit into me there, but we get away with it, and she goes down. Now this next fight against Corvus, this is a lesson in bad path planning. I think in retrospect, we should just send a Magneto here. I figured that with AA's heal block on the neurotoxin we'd be fine, but kind of forgot about how Corvus shrugs bleeds when you knock him down. So I go in here and, well, you'll see, I panic for a second and then we try to find a way to win this fight. Nice little intercept there to start the fight. I'm feeling good. I throw heavy and oh no. He purified the bleeds. Now I'm dexing. Obviously he's going to be healing every time I dex. So now I'm starting to think to myself, okay, can I even get a neurotoxin up? So I'm looking at the timer and he pretty much shrugs off the bleed every, I don't know, 5 seconds or so. So I go for a double heavy, get the window to get the poisons and bleeds up and get the neurotoxin before he's able to shrug the bleeds. So now he's heal blocked, doing a good bit of damage, and we can pretty much finish up this fight. I do make one more mistake here. I have one of those moments in war where I can't decide whether I want to back up or go in when he gets stunned by a neurotoxin, and I kind of do both and get countered with the SB1. So yeah, just always try to commit to one action instead of trying to do half of 2 actions, and you'll be better off. But we finish up the fight. Again, not the best matchup, but I'm proud of the way I was able to come up with a solution to get those neurotoxins up and not give up a death there. So now we're moving on to Red Goblin on the Rage Mini. We're going to have to deal with high ground here. Again, we're taking this with AA. I'm just going to block everything for the most part and try to get neurotoxins up and nuke him down. No bleeds on the first heavy, get 4 there, so now we're going to start getting some neuros. I should have delayed that heavy a little bit to deal with high ground, but it's okay, we're just going to have him with 1 stack here. I push him to the SB2. In retrospect, to avoid block damage, I think I should have been baiting SB1s, but I didn't want to let high ground charges stack. He gets 1 here anyway and throws off the SB2. I'm about 80% on dexing that, but I don't want to mess up and lose my combo and start really racking up the high ground charges. So again, he's got 2 charges here. I'm going to take a good amount of high ground damage, get one of those charges off. And here, I'm trying to decide what I want to do. I get a couple neuros up and I see his health ticking, so I just spam heavies. Now I'm going to push him to an SP3, and you're probably thinking, that's not good. But thankfully, Archangel has a 100% chance to stun after this SP3, so he's going to come out, melt to the neuros, and die, and we get out of there with all the attack bonus. Next up, we have a Nick Fury on Hurt Locker and SP1 Focus. Nick Fury is one of those defenders that I'm always a little bit scared about fighting. If it gets out of control, it can go really poorly. But we should be okay as long as we can control his power and not let him throw too many SP1s, especially once he gets into his real Nick Fury mode. So I'm going to use this strategy I use a lot, especially on nodes like this with Power Focus, where I just force block and try to keep him from throwing any specials. I'll reparry or bait heavies to get my openings, and this is my last fight with Apoc, so I'm not too worried about block damage. Comes the first SP2, does a ton of damage. Love using Apoc in war with the power back boosts. We have Hurt Locker here, so I want to throw out the SP1. And we've almost got through his first life. Repairing, he still hasn't thrown a special. Just back up, turtle up. So I push him into his second life, and he's almost at an SP2. I back up there, and I just didn't hold block long enough, I think, and he decided to throw the SP1. That's okay. I think this SP2 is going to have enough reach to kill him, and it does, even though we did push him to unblockable there at the end. So all in all, really happy with that fight and the strategy there. I think it's a very safe matchup. We're on to our final fight of the war, and it's Symbiote Supreme on improved power gain. We're dealing with high ground here, but it honestly is just so much fun to use Horseman Archangel. This fight, I mean, every time I use him it just impresses me. I really hope I can pull this guy as a 6-star, he would go straight to rank 3. Parry heaving, that ability accuracy as a horseman gets us up to 7 neuros super quickly. My strategy was to force block and to just push him to SP3 with the indestructible boost, but he throws an SP1 and he's just melting and dies before he can even come back in for another hit on my block. And that's a wrap for me for this war. 9 fights, 9 solos. I made some planning mistakes, but overall I'm pretty proud of how I was able to stay calm in those moments and come up with a plan to win the fight. I'm also really happy that we were able to make it back into the win column, beating out Natus Vincere 24-21, and getting back on the right track this season. But that's it for me, guys. I appreciate you watching this video and hope to see you again in the next one. Bye.